Hey guys, today is Ashes in the Light's first birthday, and right now the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents for the next week. That's from right now until 9 a.m. Central Standard Time on April 1st. I know that sounds like a bad April Fool's joke, but it's not. That's just a week from now. Ashes in the Light is a paranormal novel about a farmhouse haunting filled with ghosts, poltergeists, some fun ghostly shenanigans, as always, creepy laughs, and scary noises. Our main character, Aurora Cole, works with the sheriff across the street, Luke Davidson, to find the cause behind this haunting once and for all before it can take any lives, Aurora's included. Ashes in the Light is available in paperback, large font paperback, and ebook formats, but only the ebook is currently on sale on Amazon. Links to its Amazon and Goodreads pages are all in the description down below. The actual footage here in this video isn't going to be anything more than me coloring in this little drawing I made for my book's birthday, but I figured I'd go ahead and read you the first 2 chapters of the book while the video rolls in the background. So let's just jump right into it. Ashes in the Light, Part 1. A New House, a New Life. Friday, May 20th, 2022. Aurora Cole wasn't the kind of girl that typically accepted change. Whenever she could, she tended to avoid it at all costs. Life was easier that way. And who really liked change anyway? Who liked uprooting their entire life, packing up all their memories, and moving halfway across the country? Not Aurora, that was for sure. But when it came right down to it, the woman needed a change. She needed a way to escape. Some would call it running away from her problems, but she'd prefer to not allow everyone to believe she was a coward. Truth be told, she kind of was a coward when it came right down to it. What kind of adult left behind everything they once knew just to run away from a single problem? Aurora Cole, apparently. She pulled into the long driveway of her new home, a beautiful farmhouse on a big plot of land at 704 South Street, Whiteburn, Iowa. She couldn't help but think about how incredibly low the asking price of this gorgeous house was. Not that she was complaining. The low price was the only reason she had been able to move in the first place. Aurora put the car into park. One hand on the steering wheel, she lifted her gaze to the rearview mirror. One of her huskies lay peacefully in the back seat, and the other sat beside her in the passenger seat, head cocked to the side, staring at his owner questioningly. Aurora laughed softly and opened her car door, smiling as she breathed in the fresh country air. "This is it, boys," she said quietly, nodding her unabashed approval for the location of her retreat from all her problems. Home. She popped the trunk before sliding out of her car. Dexter jumped over the center console and followed his owner out of the vehicle. Aurora smiled as she pulled open the back door, allowing Cooper to jump outside as well. After shutting both doors, she walked back around to the trunk. "Ma'am?" Aurora turned around, forcing away her surprise to smile at the man standing just a few feet away. He was tall, with electric blue eyes that conveyed nothing but friendliness. His dirty blonde hair was pushed back behind his ears, but when he ran a hand through the middle part, it fell back to cover his forehead. "Can I help you?" Aurora asked. Lifting a hand from where it rested on his hip, he smiled. "Sheriff Luke Davidson. I live down the road," he said, jerking his other thumb over his shoulder. Aurora shook his hand, her gaze drifting to the end of her long driveway. To her left, she could see the corner of Luke's house. "Nice to meet you. I'm Aurora Cole." "The pleasure's all mine." She laughed softly as she dropped her hand back to her side. No one had ever been happy to meet her. Not like that. She wasn't overly beautiful like the girls she grew up around and went to high school with. When it came to the Cole girls, her older sister had gotten all the looks. Aurora had been left with rather plain features. Straight brown hair that wouldn't hold a curl no matter how much hairspray was used. Thick eyebrows, thin lips, a just bigger than average nose. The only thing she could say she truly liked about herself was her freckles. Otherwise, she had modified herself with meaningful tattoos, odd hair colors, waxed and tweezed eyebrows, and ear piercings. In a way, it almost made up for being nothing but a plain Jane, and she'd grown to accept it throughout the years. She was who she was, and she didn't need any added self-deprecation because of it. "No disrespect is meant by this, but aren't you too young to be a sheriff?" she asked. Luke chuckled. "Appreciate the compliment, Miss Cole. I'm 32, and I assure you that I've got enough experience under my belt to keep the folks in this town safe. Small town, you know." "Oh, I know. 200 people," Aurora said. She had done her research before choosing Whiteburn, after all. She had picked one of the smallest in the middle of nowhere towns in Iowa on purpose. She crossed her arms over her chest, sighing softly. "That's why I moved here. Countryside right in my own backyard." He nodded. "It's a good town." His gaze shifted to her dogs as they chased each other in circles around the biggest oak tree on the plot of land. "Real good people around here. I think you'll just love it here. I won't be the last neighbor to come visit you today. I wanted to be the first, introduce myself and give you a heads up, but everyone's going to want to bring you food and housewarming gifts." "You folks do that around here?" Aurora asked. Luke let out a loud whistle, rocking back on his heels. Sure do. We're like a family here. Family welcomes family, no matter what. He cleared his throat. So, would you like any help carrying in those boxes? Aurora looked back at the boxes in the back of her blazer. I'd hate to bother you with that, she said, lifting her gaze to his face once more. He waved a hand. It's nothing. It's my job to help and serve the people, Miss Cole. Right now, you're the people. She felt herself smile again. When was the last time a smile had felt this good? She couldn't remember, but she knew a smile felt amazing when it was genuine instead of only being used to hide something painful, as they so often were with her. I'd appreciate that, Luke. Thank you. After all of the boxes had been carried inside, Aurora stood in the kitchen, hands on her hips. She wasn't ready to be alone in the house. Not yet. She wondered how she could get Luke to stay, even if it was only for a few more minutes. Would you like to stay for coffee? She asked finally, bending down to open the box she remembered putting the coffee maker in. Luke smiled. I'd love that, thank you. Great. Aurora tilted her head toward him, offering a smile before she looked back down at the box. She unpacked her coffee maker and set it up on the counter. Filling the reservoir with water and adding a coffee filter with coffee grounds, she turned the machine on. 10 minutes later, they were both seated at the dining room table, a cup of hot coffee in front of them. I like your hair, Luke said. Subconsciously, Aurora's hand moved to brush a tendril of hair away from her face. Recently, she had colored it a pink so dark that it appeared to fade into purple near the ends. The people back home had always mocked her hair, regardless of what color it was. Compliments were new, to say the least. Thank you, she said softly, smiling at the blue-eyed sheriff. You're welcome, he said. He took a long sip of his coffee. Instinctively, he licked his lips as he set the mug back on the table. So, Aurora, why is it that you decided to move to such a little town? Even I have to admit there just isn't much to do all the way out here in the good old middle of nowhere. She shrugged. I felt like I needed a change in scenery, something fresh and completely different than what I was used to. I was in LA, so something small seemed like the right choice for different. Well, I assure you that you can't go wrong with Whiteburn, he chuckled. I'm sorry to inform you that your winters will be much colder, not to mention full of much more hell, he said. A couple years ago it snowed in May. I've heard that about Iowa, that the weather never really knows what the hell to do. It's like living with a bipolar climate, Luke said. 1 minute it's depressed, and the next it's manic and ready to go on a damn shopping spree. Aurora laughed. She couldn't tell if that was genuine or not. Actually, she was still having a hard time distinguishing the fake smiles and laughs from the real ones. She had faked so many of them in her lifetime that it all felt real nowadays, even when they were so obviously far from. How long have you lived here? Oh, my whole life. Most people that live in Whiteburn were born and raised here, you know? Luke asked. Seems to be the case for a lot of small towns like this. Fresh blood doesn't come around often. A smile came to his face, for lack of a better phrase. She nodded. That's not surprising. She traced a finger over the rim of her coffee mug. Have you always liked it here? Oh yeah, always have, always will. Countryside, fresh air, lovely people, happy birds, he said. With the windows open, the chirping birds outside were clear as day, and even Aurora had to admit she loved how blissfully peaceful they sounded. What more would I want? I don't know. Seems like a wonderful town so far, she said. It is, he agreed. So, are you looking for a job, or do you already have one set up around here? Looking. Well, we have an opening for a dispatcher at the station in Oskaloosa, if you're interested. That'd be great, Luke, Aurora said. He smiled. Just come by the station tomorrow, or any time, really, and ask for an application. The station's full of great people, too. Bigger neighborhood, but a great environment with even better diversity. Thank you. I'll do that. Well, thank you for coffee, Luke said, leaning against the door jamb. Aurora smiled. You're welcome. Thanks for helping me move boxes. He smiled brightly. You're welcome, Aurora. He reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out a business card. If you ever need anything, just give me a call. I'm not far, you know? Besides, like I said, family helps family here. She took the card from him. An embossed version of Luke's golden star-shaped police badge sat on the left side of the card, his name and sheriff written beside it before listing the address of the station and Luke's personal contact information. She lifted her eyes back to his face. Thank you. This is appreciated, Luke. My pleasure, Aurora. Luke had been right. By 9 o'clock that evening, Aurora had been visited by what she assumed was at least a fourth of the town. Everyone had been extraordinarily friendly, giving her their names, numbers, and addresses in case she ever needed anything. Whiteburn was the kind of town where people borrowed eggs and milk from their neighbors at 6 in the morning, and the neighbors complied without any issue. On the drive into the small town that morning, she had been particularly nervous about living on a nice plot of land in a big house all by herself. She had been worried that she would be like a reject in the town of close friends and family, but she didn't fear that anymore. Now she knew that Whiteburn was the perfect town for her, and she was certain this had been the right call. Saturday, May 21st, 2022. The first thing Aurora found out when she awoke that morning was that the moving truck wouldn't be coming in until sometime on Tuesday. It had been a relatively short phone call, and it was a fact that didn't even bother her all that much. She had no problem with waiting. She could make do with what she already had with her for a few days without too many issues arising. Not to mention that the neighbors had given her enough food to feed a family of 5 for at least 2 weeks. That being said, she settled for one of the oatmeal raisin cookies the elderly lady around the corner had brought for her. In the kitchen, Aurora unpacked the plates and cups, setting them out on the counter. She began putting them away in their respective cupboards, deciding it was best to get that out of the way as soon as she could. If she didn't do it now, she'd keep putting it off day after day, and by then she'd simply be willing to live in a house from an episode of Hoarders. The bathroom door slammed shut. Aurora froze, hands still on the small stack of plates she had put in the cupboard. She turned her head, looking back at the door over her left shoulder. She stared at it for several seconds, dropping a hand to rest on the shelf below the plates. Closing her eyes for a brief moment, she turned back to the cabinet. A window in the bathroom must have been open. A sudden gust of wind must have shut the door. The bathroom door opened, but she ignored it, like any sane person would. The bathroom door slammed shut and opened again. One hand still shoved in the cupboard. Aurora looked back over her left shoulder again. Gaze locked on the open door, she reached down and grabbed another stack of plates. Lifting them, she turned back to the cupboard and put them in their place. She grabbed a small stack of 3 or 4 plates. Just before she put them away, the door slammed shut again. She froze, the plates in her hand just barely touching the others in the cupboard. She turned her head to look at the door, gently pushing the plates onto the top of the stack. A hand resting on the cupboard shelf, she turned fully around as the sound of giggling reached her ears. The bathroom door opening and closing was something she could explain away. Children giggling in a house where no children lived was not. She pushed herself away from the cupboard and the kitchen counter, unblinking as she kept her gaze on the door. The door swung open. Just before she reached it, it slammed closed again. She stood in front of the door, heart pounding wildly in her chest. She wrapped a hand around the doorknob, swallowed roughly, and threw open the door. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Alright, you guys, that is all that I have for the first 2 chapters of Ashes in the Light. My voice reading was probably a little weird at times, but I did what I could. My jaw is killing me. But, yeah, that's all that I have. Today is Ashes in the Light's first birthday. I'm still very happy with this book, very proud that it started off my new leaf last year, and just very happy with everything that I've done since then as well. One more time, if you're still here, the ebook is on sale for 99 cents until 9 a.m. Central Standard Time on April 1st, and then it will go back to full ebook price after that. But links are in the description down below to its Amazon and its Goodread page, the links to my social media, authors pages, all of that is in the description as well. But that is all that I have. I will let the rest of the video here play without further interruption. If you're interested in fast forwarding to the end, feel free to, but that's all that I have. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.